The year was 2003, and I thought that if I won Fear Factor, that would catapult my fitness center to the moon. I thought everybody would know me. I thought I'd be famous. I wasn't. I just looked like a puss. And today, I'm going to tell you the story. All right, so first things first, if you guys have not subscribed to the Alpha Empire channel, why don't you do that now because it's free. Also, this channel, it's not the old Alpha M channel. That one's still going. This one is all about business advice. This one is also about helping you build your empire. Now, in terms of how the Fear Factor story is kind of business related, the only thing I can really think of is when I went out and when I decided to go on, I thought, this was back in 2003, that if I went on Fear Factor, right, I thought that everybody would be like, he's so awesome that we should go and hire him as a personal trainer. I had the personal training studio, way that it worked. Fear Factor in 2003 was like the OG reality show, right? It was like the first reality show. It was before really the internet was what the internet is. It was 2003. I'm talking ages ago, 20 freaking years ago. And so this show was super popular. I loved it. And one day I was talking to my business partner, Linda's husband, Ken. I said, man, I love Fear Factor. He goes, you should get on Fear Factor. And I said to him, well, if you can figure out how to get me on, I'll go on. Coincidentally, 3 days later, they were having an open casting call at a Crunch Fitness down in Buckhead, Georgia. And so I thought, you know what do I have to lose? I'm going to go down there and try to audition and see if I can get on. This was my first experience with a reality show. And so I went down, I stood in line, there were a ton of people. And the way that it worked, they called 20 people in at a time, basically got you around the table. There's a producer there, and rapid fire, he started going around the table and just pointing at people and asking them questions, all right? Now, this was my first experience with a reality show, and I knew reality show 101, you gotta be a big personality, you gotta be somebody interesting that people wanna watch. And so I got set up beautifully for this. It was back in the day when I was a competitive bodybuilder. I'll show you some pictures in a second. I will also link down below to the Fear Factor episode that you can watch, enjoy. I'm just saying, I want to explain some things before you do, so I don't look like quite as big of a puss. Anyway, so I was jacked. I was in really good shape. I was competing in natural bodybuilding. So we're all around this table, and there was this skinny dude next to me. And the producer points to him and goes, why should we pick you over him? And he pointed to me. And the guy goes, well, I've got a better body. And I'm thinking to myself, really? And then he looks at me and goes, well, why should we have you over him? And I rip my shirt off in front of 20 people or 19 people. And I say, because the dude's obviously smoking crack. Look at me. Boom, right? Yeah. In reality world, that was gold, right? I got totally set up. So he excuses everybody. We're all leaving, and he grabs me. He goes, hey, I want you to go to the bus. I want you to basically talk to the other producers. And I said, awesome. At that point, I knew it was mine to lose. And so I go on this bus, and there were casting directors there, and they were asking me a bunch of questions. And once again, I was just kind of like a personality. I knew that I had to take it up to level 27. This was also before YouTube, right? I didn't start making my YouTube videos until 2008. So a long time before that. I didn't develop my je ne sais quoi or my video voice yet, but this was the beginning. And so long story short, I apply, and then they give me this packet of information and this contract, basically. It was like 50 pages long. It was the most legally binding thing ever. Like, if you die, you cannot sue us. If you come across like a puss, you cannot sue us. You can, literally. And I signed it, of course. I sent it back. About 2 months later, I got the call that I was going to be on Fear Factor, and I was pumped. So long story short, I fly out to Los Angeles. Another caveat to this, I had no money at the time. I needed to win Fear Factor. I thought, if I can win $50,000, because that was the thing. If you win your episode, you win $50,000. You're competing against, basically, there are 3 boys, 3 girls. You've got 3 different stunts. And the winner, if you keep moving on, you win $50,000. And I desperately needed money. I had the fitness center, and I literally was making nothing. And so I went out there. I had a credit card that I think had like $200 or $300 on it. And I had all the cash I had in my pocket was basically all I had, which was around $70. Now, the cool thing, I was like, yo, I'm going out there. They're going to pay me like a stipend every day that I'm out there of like $40. So I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, that was awesome, right? So we get out there, and one of the things and rules that they tell you is if you see somebody at this hotel that you think may be on Fear Factor, you are not allowed to talk to them. You're not even allowed to look at them, because they didn't want people like getting together and being like, yo, if I win, I'll give you half the money. If you win, you'll give me half the money. They didn't want any like collusion. And so they scare you. And so the first day, basically, the way that it worked, you were there, and then the next day, they were going to film. But the filming was going to be at night. And so you had all day to basically hang out and be nervous and get ready. And so I'm like, I'm in Los Angeles. I'd never been here. I'm going to go to Muscle Beach. I want to see Muscle Beach. I want to go to Venice. And so I had like, literally it was like $100, maybe 100 at this point, because they gave me like my first stipend. I had nothing. And this was before like you could pay like credit cards and cabs or anything like that. I had to take a cab to Venice. But so I call them up. I'm like, how much is it? They're like, oh, it's, $43. I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm like, 43, I can get back. I'll still have like $43. I'll have enough money. And so I go out to Venice, and I'm hanging out, and I am just like loving it, soaking it up. I was very disappointed at Muscle Beach, where that gym used to be, because I thought it was going to be something that it wasn't, and it just kind of sucked and was kind of nasty. Venice Beach reminded me of an even more like nasty like Atlantic City boardwalk. It was not great. Lots of bums, lots of homeless people, lots of like it just had a smell. But I was just loving it, right? Because I was in California, it was awesome. So anyway, I go to get a cab back. I call him up. Hey, I want to get to my hotel. And I go, how much? And he goes, it's going to be $62. I go, wait a second. I don't have $62. I thought it was only going to be $40. Well, they was like, no, it's $62. And so basically, I had to negotiate with the cabbie. I'm like, look, I'm sorry. This is all the money I have to my name. Can I please get back to this hotel? And he's like, okay. And so he basically cut me a deal so I could get back to the hotel and ready to film. So here we go. It's time for Fear Factor. So it's time. We go downstairs, we get in a van, and they blindfold us. Literally. They want you to be like super like stressed out and everything. So we're blindfolded, we're driving in this van at night, and we finally get to where we're going. And they let us out and they put us in this trailer, and they tell us what we need to know. And then they said, okay, well, it's ready. We're time. It's go time. And so we start doing our thing, right, in the walkout, doing the intro. And they're setting us up, and they're making us walk, and we're doing all that. And then we go up for the first stunt. And it's obvious to me that I am not going to do super great at this. What it was, the first stunt was a big tank of water, giant tank of water. You have a body bag, right? It's a clear plastic body bag that they zip up. They also handcuff you. On the handcuff is this long like lanyard with a key. The whole point is pretty simple, right? They're going to zip you up, you're handcuffed, they're going to drop you from a crane into this tank of water, and you've got to get out of the handcuffs, unzip the bag, and get up before you drown. Sounds easy, right? So we are at the top of this like platform, and we start filming, and Joe Rogan's there. Now, this is 2003. Joe Rogan isn't Joe Rogan yet. Joe Rogan was just like a guy who was on TV, and he got this gig. Like Fear Factor really like catapulted Joe Rogan into like really like as a household name. Joe Rogan now is like just a different animal, but back then he had hair, and he was a comedian. He was on a television show called News Radio. This is going way back. So he's up there, we're all up there, cameras are rolling, and here we go. All right, now, the one thing you need to understand that you don't really see on the episode is when they drop you in this tank of water, there are divers all around, right? And the last thing they tell you before they actually drop you in that thing is don't wait until you're totally out of air. We need about 10 to 15 seconds to get you up. And right away, I'm like, crap. I'm like, how do I know when I'm 10 to 15 seconds away from taking a breath, right? So already I'm stressed out. The other thing that I'm stressed out about is that I have asthma. And so not being able to breathe is one of the things that is really kind of like one of my things. Like it just doesn't make me feel good. Now the good news is that I'm an incredible swimmer. I was on the swim team. I was good there, but I am not somebody that has like this huge, massive lung capacity. I'm also not somebody that's really ever practiced like holding their breath. I just don't do it. And so I'm already like, oh God, here we go. So the first person gets dropped in, and right away she's like, no, that was the hand motion for get me the fuck out of here because I don't like this anymore, right? And so she gets taken up to the top by the divers. They rip her out of the bag and she gets up. I think now it's my turn. I think I was the second person or third person. I can't remember off the top of my head. But they said to me, they go, Joe says like, Aaron, how do you think you're gonna do? How long do you think it's gonna take you to get out? I'm like, I don't know, like 30 seconds? And I made some stupid joke. He kind of made fun of me, asked me about natural bodybuilding, and then I got to take my shirt off. Which I was excited about, taking my shirt off on national television. All right, they handcuffed me, they zip me up in the body bag, they put my little goggles on me, and here we go. I'm nervous, my heart is racing, and boom, they drop me in the water. Now, What they don't tell you, and what I didn't think to realize, is that, think of it like this. If you have a plastic bag and you put it on your hand and you dip it in a bag or a bowl of water, what happens? It literally like saran wraps you. And so you've got to basically like wait for this bag to kind of like regulate. Well, I didn't know this. And so automatically, boom, I get dropped in the water and it saran wraps me. I'm holding my breath at this point because I'm like, I don't know if there's water in here or not. And I'm fighting, and the more you fight to try to like get room, because I was trying to like get space in order to get my key and get out and get the whole thing, I'm just sitting there fighting and I couldn't like get any room. I also couldn't see the key. It was like a nightmare, like from the start. And I'm just like, I'm in my head, I'm like, okay, don't wait till you're out of breath. Don't wait till you're out of breath. The other problem is that when your heart is racing, you're using oxygen a lot faster. And so anyway, I look like a puss, and eventually I just go, it wasn't very long. It was like 25, 30 seconds. I'm like, F this. I'm like, I'm out. They take me up to the top, and I felt like a huge douche. But at this point, when I didn't get out, the first person didn't get out, right? Everybody was starting to get a little bit like sketchy and like, uh-oh, this looks hard. Because another thing with Fear Factor is if everybody doesn't get through or nobody gets through the first stunt, you get to all come back. Or if only one person gets to do it or succeeds, he gets half the money, $25,000, and then everybody gets to move on to the second stunt to compete for the other $25,000. So at this point, my only hope was that nobody gets it or one person does. And so they kept going. Everybody was calling it quits. But then they get to the last guy, Dwayne, and he does it, right? I think he just kind of like learned from everybody else's mistakes, like struggling and just like getting dropped in and just waiting, and it'll regulate, and then you have an easy time. But when you fight against it, that's when things go awry. So anyway, the good news is that Dwayne won $25,000. The other great news, though, is that we all got to come back for the second day. So we're all sitting there waiting to go back to the hotel, and we're in this like trailer, just kind of waiting. And all of a sudden, Joe Rogan walks in, and he just starts like talking to all of us. One of the things he asked me, he's like, hey, what do you use to lose body fat? And this was back like right after the nutrition store days. I'm like, oh, CLA and L-carnitine. It's awesome. Take it together, blah, 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 empty stomach. And he's like, awesome, I'm going to have to try that. And then there was this other woman, Miss Alaska, who got up and was like, hey, Joe. And she like gives him like a little like punch in the shoulder, and he like shoves her, not intentionally, but it was harder than I think she expected. And she ends up falling back against the sofa and hits her head on the trailer. And she's all like, anyway, she was all like, oh, I think I might have a concussion. I'm like, shut up, you do not. Anyway, so that was really the only communication that we had with Joe Rogan at that point. We leave, we go back to our hotel. The next day, I didn't have any money, so I didn't go anywhere. I just hung out at the pool and walked around that little area. And then we go back for a second night. Now, the second night, I was ready. I'm like, all right, I was prepared. In my head, I'm like, it doesn't matter if they asked me to eat cat turds. I, in my head, was ready, because that's one of the things with not Shark Tank. They don't make you eat shit on Shark Tank. They make you eat crazy things on Fear Factor. And so if you've ever seen the episode, like that is one of the things that you're like, oh God, right? Eating like testicles and bugs and all that. And so going up to Fear Factor, you know you're probably going to have to do something disgusting. And so for me, I was working it right in my head. I'm like, okay, what is the worst thing I could eat? And I was planning and I was preparing so that I could do it, right? And so we get there, and here's the second stunt. Ready? It's called the bug transfer. The way that it worked, they had two bins. In the center of the bin, or the middle of the bin, it was all these worms, and it had Madagascar hissing cockroaches and these giant millipedes. All right, now, two people were going at a time. They were going to suspend you upside down. You had to pull yourself down into the bugs and grab with your mouth either a cockroach or a millipede, and you had to sort them. Millipedes on the left, cockroaches on the right. And then once the time was up, I think it was like a minute, then they counted how many bugs you had, and that was the winner. All right? The first group goes, and the winner ends up being on this box, right? The box on, call it my left or my right, whatever you're watching this on, okay? So the first person goes, is eliminated, the one person moves on. Second group of people, I'm the third group. I'm going against Dwayne. I was ready to destroy him, right? Next winner, same box, right? And so they weren't refilling bugs. They weren't putting bugs back after you'd sort them. And so this box was starting to dwindle bugs. The people that were going on this box were sucking. They were like three. They're like, ew, ew, ew. I'm like, you've had worse in your mouth, lady. I'm kidding. Not kidding. So anyway, this box was down bugs. I didn't think about it at the time, but it was my turn to go. And guess what box I'm on? This box. This box had tons of bugs. And so Dwayne and I start going, and I am killing them, like killing them. And then my box ran out of bugs, essentially. All right, all my bugs were like around I couldn't get my face in there. And so I literally was just like trying to get like anything I could for the last like half of the contest. And Dwayne ends up getting more bugs. I would have destroyed him. I'm just saying, I was killing him, and I would have kept killing him if my box didn't run out of bugs. And so we get done, I get eliminated. But interesting side note, after the stunt, I had this spicy sensation in my mouth. And so I asked one of the producers, I go, why do I taste spicy? He goes, it's actually the millipedes. They're little feet, right? They put little microscopic like cuts on your tongue that give you the sensation of spice and hot. I go, that's interesting. I also had cockroach bites all over my lip. That was it. Game over for me. I didn't get to compete on the third stunt. And to this day, funny story, I've never watched the last three. I know that Dwayne wins because I think there was like a recap, but I've never watched that last stunt because I was so upset that I, A, didn't win $50,000 or anything, and that I thought that I probably looked like a puss on national television. But anytime somebody says that, like, oh, you look like a wimp, I go, I'll tell you what, I got a pool and a trash bag. Let's go, and some handcuffs. Let's go try this. That one was scary as hell, if I'm being completely honest. And if I would have had more time to practice, I probably could have done it. But anyway, that was my Fear Factor experience. Actually, I've got one more thing. One thing I did buy on the trip with a credit card because I had a little bit of money. I want to just show you real quick if I can find it. Oh, that's not it. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Nope. Yep, there it is. This ring I bought at Los Angeles Airport at a little silver shop when I was leaving Fear Factor. I thought to myself, I went in the store and I saw this ring and I was like, man, that's really a cool ring, right? It's got different like stones in it. I'm like, I wanna remember this. And so even though I didn't have any cash, I bought this on credit. But it was like 200 bucks, and I wore this until honestly it just broke. And I thought, oh, should I get it fixed? I'm like, nah, let me just kind of move on to another ring. And that's kind of what I did. Something else I just want to address. Yes, I was overly tan. Yes, my eyebrows were way too tweezed, arched, and plucked, and I looked like a Goomba. Anyway, that's it. That's the story. It was cool. I was on Fear Factor 20 years ago. I was also on another reality show called Glam God with Vivica Fox that I lied my way onto. That is another story that maybe someday I'll tell you, but that was a disaster. I also understood for the first time what it was like to be like the kid that didn't get picked for like the team or like tag, or I felt like, you know, I felt like the fat kid because nobody wanted me on their team. It was a competition with like stylists, and I was like some, you know, straight dude that it only had one season. But anyway, Fear Factor was cool, and it's definitely something that I just wanted to share. Shark Tank was cooler, but Fear Factor definitely was early days, and it's fun. Anyway, what's not fun for me to do is watch that video, but if you want to, it's down below. Guys, if you dug this video, drop me one of these. If you haven't yet, subscribe to the Alpha Mpire channel. I promise, next video, it's all about helping you get rich.